Well, first of all, welcome to everybody to Learning To. And I want to also welcome my co-host and facilitator, Elizabeth Perry. And we have Dale also that's going to help us with the conversation. And we have one more guest, also Adrian.
Adrienne. Yeah.
Adrienne, sorry. Thank you, Adrienne, for correcting me there. Anyway, so what we'd like to do is just remind you on the side, there's a chat room. So I'm going to share my screen just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. On the side, I have the option for this. Oh, you're not going to see it when I share, so it won't work. But you should see a chat room if you go down to the chat box. And if you have questions or want to say anything to somebody specifically, or you have a point and you feel you're not getting the airtime, just jot there. I'll monitor that. The other thing is you can just put your hand up and I'll write a note down, and then we'll go in sequence and try to make sure everybody gets to participate in the conversation as best as we can. So just bear with us if it's not as smooth as all being together in a nice bar with some Chardonnay, but we'll try to do the best we can. Anyway, it's wonderful to see all these people here joining us. And I want to thank again Carol, Simon, and Stephen, and Annette, the Learning To folks that are kind of in the background, making sure these things happen. And thank you for all your help. What I'd like to do is maybe turn it over to Elizabeth and Dale and Adrienne, just to quickly introduce yourselves and just give a quick synopsis where you are. And then we'll start with some guiding questions that people can participate in. So Elizabeth, over to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm Elizabeth Perry, International School of Prague, where I think my title is technician coach. The title seems to change in this kind of role by the day, but I teach a class called Art and Code, and I'm very interested in the intersection of arts and programming and technology. So yeah, we have been distance learning since 12th, although we spent 2 days ramping up, and it was really probably Monday the 17th where we really got started.
Great, thank you. Dale.
Hi everybody, my name is Dale Etheridge. I work with Liz at the International School of Prague, and I'm the music teacher there. But I kind of have my hands in all sorts of things, so I think that's why Liz invited me into this process.
Great. Adrienne.
Hi, I'm Adrienne. I work at the International School of Lausanne, and I work in primary arts and in the innovation lab there. So, and Liz and I have done some professional development with ECIS, and she taught me the Art and Code, a quick synopsis of her class a few years ago. So we've kept in touch since then. I see some familiar faces.
Great. My name is John Micton. I'm at the International School of Luxembourg. I'm the head of education and media technology, and my involvement in arts is in improvisation. I am in a semi-professional, professional improv troupe and do this here in Luxembourg. But I love art, and I think it's been so interesting to support and see what, in my own context in our school, what our music and art teachers have been able to do and how they've engaged students and how creative they've been with often a lot of limitations. And it's really just fantastic to see what has been generated and how they're supporting the students. What we'll do is maybe start off with just start with the first question, which is, how do you adapt learning to what a student has available at home? And maybe Adrienne, you can start with that question if you don't mind.
I started, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I started just with, we were really lucky. We knew we were going to be home learning. And so the kids could take their sketchbooks home. And I just had new classes. So I'd met with them 3 times and then we'd worked in the sketchbooks those 3 times. So thank goodness those had a framework kind of set up, and then they went home, and now they're very independent. But we started with just draw a picture of what tools you have available, and we'll go from there. So I'm not sure what other people's experiences would have been like with that.
Great, thank you. Anybody want to add to Adrian, maybe their own experience regarding that kind of, here the kids are at home, there's virtual online learning. You might not have been able to prepare. Some schools it was very sudden, others had more a phased approach. Any thoughts from the group here? Just raise your hand and we'll give you the floor. Dale, thank you.
If we do a digital raising, a Zoom hand raise, or
I think we'll do old school. We'll do old school.
One of the things we had 2 days, so we tried to get as many instruments out. We just basically didn't even have sign outs. We just took a picture of the kid with the ukulele and off they went. But it wasn't perfect. And so in a lot of cases, I just changed. And I think this is in some ways, some of our teachers are kind of trying to replicate what they do in the classroom just at home, which doesn't actually necessarily work, or take advantage of some things that might work better at home. So one thing that I did is there's no way that I could get 25 of my students to sit and thoughtfully listen to classical music if we're all together. They're middle schoolers. So that being at home actually allowed me to do some more of that music appreciation and classical music listening to, if that makes sense. So I adapted. The goal is appreciating music. If we were in class, I may have done a different type of music or a different activity, but I'm trying as much as possible to be as authentic as possible, and also be very wary of giving the kids too much and honoring that they might be under a lot of stress that I'm not aware of. So
I think that's a really good point you bring, Dale, is the stress at home, because every situation is so different. And for a lot of families, this is new. Maybe both parents are working, teleworking. There might be more than one child. There might not be as many devices. It depends on the space in the house. So I think you highlighting that is an important thing. There's some variables that we're not aware of. And I'll ask, I only see your last name. So if you can, when you share, and then I just can write down so I can call you by your first name. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Sarah Prowler. I'm from Bavarian International School. And one of the main things we're doing in the visual arts department is to try to get the kids away from the computer. So what I do is I'll look around the house and see what we've got. So for one thing, I've got this is for middle school. So I want them making art as much as possible. I want them quickly referring to what I put up on the Google Classroom to give them some kind of context. And then they just go and make. So for example, I've got them to look at Andy Gold's where if you've got a garden, go out and get the stuff, build something. If not, look around the house, see what you've got. I've got them using the windows, doing demos, create a pattern, create a design just from drawing, anything you can see out the window. So we're trying to get them to make stuff. And then if they don't have the stuff, we have Google Meet, so then they can tell me and I can come up with something else on the cuff for them. But usually I try to find stuff that they have at home.
And Sarah, this is a really good point you bring up, is this idea, because of the move to virtual learning and online learning, the screen time has been amplified. And I know for a lot of parents, they're looking for ways to pull them away, because often it's just easy to say, go and watch Netflix or go and watch a movie. And I love the way you're just, whatever's at home, and the idea of using the windows is just great. Thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth, do you want to share maybe what you did in that transition and kind of surviving with what's at home, especially when you combine tech and art?
I'm sorry, my connection is bad and I missed part of that question.
So Elizabeth, we're just asking, can you share a bit about your own journey with this idea of suddenly kids being at home, and how are you engaging them with whatever might be in the home, but also you have that tech component that you teach?
One of the things, since my students are programming, and at this point in the semester, they've already moved to the processing programming language. Fortunately, we had a couple of classes before dispersal, so they had a chance to troubleshoot downloading the software development environment that they needed, and had many begun doing the first tutorial. What I decided to do, and this is again, I think it was Dale who talked about, we don't know what else is in their lives. We don't know what else is going on with them. And so I tried to pare the class back radically in terms of the actual requirements to complete it. I began thinking about, well, what 3 experience with before the end of the semester, and what's the easiest way for me to do that? I had been in a situation where I'd prepared some self-paced tutorials in the past, and so I pulled out all the stops and prepared a couple of more ones so that someone could work through them at their own pace. It's a very differentiated, a lot of experience with art and only a little with code. Some have a lot of experience with code, but haven't really thought much about aesthetics. So it makes for interesting conversations when you're in person, but when they're away, it's challenging. I didn't want to move them lockstep through a bit of curriculum. So they're working at their own pace. The goal is to complete 3 tutorials before the end of the semester. We'll visit the idea of whether they do a final project later on, which would probably be taking one of the tutorials and extending it further for themselves. But it means that the students who are more tentative can work closer to a tutorial and can move more slowly, and the ones who are ready to soar can just really dive in. So that has been, it's been really useful for differentiating the class. And from a classroom management side, it's been nice because I really have the time and quiet space when I'm not managing a class to really look through their code line by line and be helpful to them. And that's been really nice.
Thank you. Elizabeth, one thing that you brought up that I think is an interesting point is this idea of pacing and quantity. And you highlighted that you're trying to actually cut back on the quantity. And I know that, in schools, and this is really to our group here, in schools, often parents perceive the core curriculum as more essential than maybe the arts and music and some of the extracurricular. And so that section, those topics tend to be very heavy, and there's a lot. And then when you add the arts and music and other creative arts topics, sometimes it feels like an addition, and that feels stressful. I'm wondering how people in their own contexts are juggling those different workflows, that of the demand of the core curriculum, but also the importance of creativity and the arts, and making sure that airtime is available for kids to kind of unwind. Anka, I'm not sure we can hear your mic right now.
Sorry about that. I had double muted myself. So I was just going to say that at the upper school here in Zurich International School, we've been talking a lot on the leadership team about how to get all teachers to understand that they can't teach their full curriculum. So I don't think it's fair to say that PE and arts can, dumb it down. Let's call it that way. That's what it ends up being if you only make certain subjects do it. So it's about being intentional about what are the essential skills in your field and teaching to those. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Yes, Tracy.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm also Zurich International School with Anka, and I know a lot of faces here. It's really nice to see you guys in this weird way. Those of you who don't know, nice to meet you. Yeah, you know what, along those lines, I teach music. I teach upper school music, and I teach band, orchestra, and music composition. It's a composition elective. And luckily, we do have lots of tech tools, like Soundtrap and Noteflight, and a few others that we already were lucky enough to have because we use them in our curriculum already. So that was pretty lucky, even though a lot of those are offered free right now because of the COVID situation. But I think what I will find out if I was successful tomorrow. We came in with 2.5 weeks going into spring break. And so I set up basically for my bands and orchestras kind of passion projects where they had about 10 choices of something they could do And it could be performance, it could be composition, it could be research, it could be comparative analysis, it could be theory-based. They could make up something and pitch it to me. But I gave them a big selection. Now I'll see how successful this was when I get them all turned in tomorrow. We're gonna find out. But the ones I've seen some kids have really taken it like full on. Kids that are really invested in music, they've gone crazy and like written pieces for a whole concert band and done really amazing stuff for, and some kids have put in kind of half-assed stuff like they would in their practice time. So it's kind of like, you know, it's going to be a mixed bag of what I get back, but I think it gave kids a lot of options to use music in a different way. And plus, since we've been doing a lot of the standards based, using the INCAS standards and stuff, it gives me a chance to work on those ones we never get to work on, like Create, and those are just options for me to do that. But I think I'm definitely of the plan of big chunks, a few things. I guess we're going to have maybe 10 weeks of this, and I see myself really maybe having 2 to 3 outcomes for my ensemble classes, and then maybe another 1 or 2 for my composition groups. The other thing that really helped me at the beginning, now I know we've already pretty much started, is I put a Google form out right away that was like, what do you have at home? Do you have an instrument? What instruments do you have? Do you have guitars, pianos? What do you have? Do you have some drums? Do you have composition software besides what we have in class? Do you have, and so I could get an idea of if most kids got their stuff home, and because we were medium knowing we were going to close. It wasn't really transparent until the day we did. So most kids got their stuff home, but that helped a lot. I could just see what they had. Again, somebody else had said they did that kind of too, and I think that really helped a lot. Then I knew how to develop lessons, but I'm definitely doing lessons more. We're going to see the success hopefully tomorrow or not. So I will know more next time we meet.
Great, thank you, Tracy. I do love that idea of the little audit of what is there, and I think especially in our case, we know we're going to be going on for a little while longer. It might never hurt to, even if you haven't done it, that's a great takeaway, is maybe just do an audit and say, okay, we've done this journey so far. What do you still have at home? And that might also give some ideas. But great idea, Tracy, about the Google form, and good luck. I would look forward to, hopefully we can hear how that goes tomorrow. One of the things that often in the creative arts, an aspect is collaboration, you know, groups working together, sharing ideas, and kind of, you know, igniting new thoughts and stuff as they work together. And I would like to hear from the group, what does collaboration look like, and how are you maybe using collaboration in your unique contexts in a virtual world? What does that look like? Dale, do you want to maybe, I don't know, it looked like you're going to raise your hand, so that's good.
Sure, I'll start. Partly on a side note of collaboration, most of us are probably familiar with Zoom now and teaching with it and with the breakout rooms. And so one of the classes I teach is rock band, and I have 10 kids in there, and they're in 2 bands. And so we have a little team talk at the beginning, and then I put them into 2 breakout rooms, and they work on, basically they're playing along with YouTube now to make sure that they all have the same backing track, and then they record themselves, and then they send it to me, and I put together, kind of, you see the virtual choirs going around there. I use iMovie to put it together. The first one wasn't super successful because the girl who's playing electric guitar only has an acoustic guitar and no plug-in and all sorts of other things. But what was incredibly striking to me was the first time I put them in the breakout rooms, I said, well, I'm going to leave and you guys can talk as long as you want. And they literally stayed in there for about 70 minutes.
Wow.
And so I zoomed back in, and they were all independently practicing with just the screen on so they could see each other's faces. Like, they weren't trying to play together. They were just playing separately at the same time, alone together, if you will. And which was beautiful, but it also made me realize that you read about isolation and things like that, but the kids just need to be together. And so I think it's a tangent as far as collaboration, because collaboration has been a challenge to have it be, besides sending stems around and things like that, because the kids don't actually have all of the tech to be able to start overdubbing things in GarageBand. That would then become, all those would come to me. So that's also, I think, something that we have to be careful with, of how much we have this big idea, and then all of a sudden it's 15 hours of production work on our side to make a 2-minute video.
I think that's an important point is that you're bringing up, is the pacing of you as the educator and the creator of a lot of these activities. You know, what's the balance and workflows that you juggle, and make sure that the intent is really good, but the impact back on you, as you're highlighting, can be really quite large, and being mindful of that. I'm wondering from also this group, you know, collaboration is also just the relationship that you have with your students back and forth. And if somebody wants to talk a bit how they're juggling that, may it be Zoom, as Dale had mentioned, or some other Google Meets. There are a lot of different venues, and just curious on that topic of collaboration, how are you managing and working between your cohorts and yourselves? Anybody would like to share? Tracy.
I don't want to overshare. So if anybody wants to cut me off at any time, please.
Don't worry, I'm going to start picking on people before long.
I'm kind of an oversharer, so I'm just warning you in advance. No, but I guess what I have my best luck. I mean, Zoom has been okay. The kids have all been coming to class, and we did actually do one day with instruments with the band and the orchestra last week. Just for fun, I played along a backing track, and they were all playing with it in Zoom. It's really nice if you set it up for music, if you haven't done that already, because they can hear the actual sound from your computer, not from the speakers. So if you don't know how to do that, we'll talk later on that. But you know, we played along, and it was just kind of fun to just see everybody trying to play. But it was really interesting even trying to do that. We're like, my dad has a conference call in the next room, my sister's taking a midterm. You know, we couldn't really actually even do that because of their situations, which that surprised me actually. The other way I'm finding the best collaboration is using Soundtrap. As far as, if you don't know it, now it's also free, so you can check it out. But it's a composition, it's a music production tool, but it does have the ability to while you can't talk live, you can collaborate live. So I can go in a room with kids that are working on a composition. We actually completed a rap composition that we left midway, and I had kids transfer their stuff into this software so we could all keep working. But where I can give feedback directly right when it's happening, so I can go in a room with the kids working on their rap, and I can talk to them, type in or talk online if I have it hooked up that way. Usually I don't. Kids can also, I had one of the passion project choices was record a duet or a trio, and I gave out parts, and kids had to learn their part and learn how to play with a quick track metronome in Soundtrap, record their part. The other kid had to record their part. And so there was some collaboration happening between the kids to make that work. And I could chime in if needed, or they wanted me to come. So I'm trying to just establish a collaboration that way with the kids. I found Soundtrap to be really good for that. And even if they're just doing basic music production, like GarageBand style loops and stuff, they can collaborate on it. So they're working together. Collaboration has been tricky though, I have to say, because different kids are showing different levels of investment in what's going on right now. So it's not like I can stand over them like I can in class and be like, okay, you know, you guys are behind on this or whatever. So my next project is going to be individual, because too many kids got in partnerships that were not fruitful for everybody. So I think my next project will be individual and no option for working with others. And then it keeps it separately responsible.
Tracy, do you mind on the sidebar put in the link to that resource? So if you're sharing a resource, if you can just type the URL so people can grab it and refer to it. Yeah, that would be really nice. Thank you, Tracy. I'm just curious, Adrian, just from your aspect on that collaboration, you know, away from the focus on music and the creative arts, what has your experience been like?
Similar to Dale, you were talking about you're taking their work and then you're doing a compilation and then sharing it back out. That's how we started as well. You know, the kids, I feel lucky that I didn't have to demand that they turn in work on Seesaw or demand that they, you know, send work to me. It was sort of this optional thing. And then I could work with them in small groups on Google Meet. And just like you'd said as well, I arrived in the group and there was, you know, 24 kids in the group already chatting unsupervised, which is like a bit of a shock, but it just goes to show how much they want to connect with each other. And And they were completely behaving. They were doing a great job. So it was nice to join that ethos that they already kind of established for themselves and continue to talk about how's it going? What are you able to create at home? Screenshot, share it that way. It was very low rent, not quite high tech, but we'll get there. And so the next goal was I put some work that they'd shared with me in a slideshow, and the next is an iMovie. And then after that, we're going to move into a 3D co-spaces and create like a virtual gallery that they can walk around and then add their own work. And it could be, I'm hoping we can get to sculptural work because we're in a 3D outdoor environment, or we can change the background of the environments as well. So you can make an installation kind of in all these different environments, and hopefully that will bring more engagement because they seem like they want to be sharing. So we'll see how that goes. Right now the engagement level is about 35%. It's a little low.
Thank you very much for that. What about collaboration between colleagues? Elizabeth, maybe you can address, you have an arts department, and I know you mentioned the other day when we were kind of preparing for this, you were talking about how rich that conversation was. Maybe you can share a bit about how as a department you're collaborating too in this virtual world.
Well, it was more just how starved we are for contact with each other, whether or not it's collaborative. It's just we're so used to hallway or at the bus stop to head home.
Hold on,
And
Elizabeth.
those casual, just kind of, oh.
I think that's Tracy. Tracy, you're not muted.
I fixed it. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Please go ahead,
That's
Elizabeth.
all right.
So,
No, I was just talking about how starved we are for the casual contact with colleagues. That idea that sort of brushes up against another idea over the lunch table. And so trying to figure out, we had an arts department meeting, not because we really had anything at all on the agenda that we needed to discuss, but just because we really kind of wanted to just make small talk with each other. So I think we're as starved for that contact as the kids are. But out of those kinds of conversations, I mean, that's where the unpredictable joy or delight or combination comes. It's not from, oh, well, we will schedule a time for teachers to share their findings and best practices with each other. Everyone is too exhausted for that. I think that the place to start is creating these social spaces out of which we can then begin to have a play.
thank you. Demo, I'm going to call on you because knowing a bit what's going on at ISL, I know you have an arts department. They're known as Studio 6. Maybe talk to a bit also about that collaborative piece that because you have film, you have art, you have music, you have design. Just, how are you guys using that collaboration for your own collective, sanity and work?
Right now, we are meeting with each other on Zoom twice a week at scheduled times, but it seems as if we're meeting for 5-10 minutes every day. Maybe not the full department, but with various people and having let's say their normal collaborative times, and things seem to be going well. We're trying to do all the things that everyone else has really discussed already so far. One of the biggest challenges was or is getting that speaker set up from the music perspective. So thank you, Tracy, for sending those links. I hope that will help matters there. But visual arts seem to have things going well. One of my colleagues, Patty from the lower school, is here. Great to see you. But there are some things that Adrian was discussing, which I'll share with the art colleagues later as well. And film, and I don't know if there are any theater people here. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, good point. Theater, yeah. Are there any theater people in the room?
Let me call out Elizabeth King, who's muted with her. But I see Liz King's name here, so if she's available.
Wrong, Liz King. I work at the Bavarian International School, and I'm a visual arts.
Oh my my goodness. Okay, because we have a Liz King at ISP who's in the theater, and I was so surprised to see her, but since
Okay.
I didn't see the video, didn't know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Demo. One of the things that, you know, we're talking about is this personal contact, this face-to-face, and what about pacing? We talked a bit about pacing, but what are some things that you have really kind of the ahas having done virtual learning? I assume most of us for a couple of weeks. What are the things that you've had to really change pacing wise, and how has that impacted your own understanding of, you know, delivering the learning? Anybody? Can I pick another ISL person? Felicity, do you mind if I call on you?
I think for me, pacing, the first week I just went hammer and tongs. I'm so used to working all the time, every second, that I felt guilty if I stopped. And it's only this week, week 3, that I've actually been able to think, okay, I don't have to feel guilty if I've got some downtime. So I think for me, it was more pacing what I was doing rather than pacing my delivery to the kids. I don't know if anybody else has felt like that sense of guilt almost at first, because
yeah, because you want to make sure you look like you're busy and engaged. That's a really good point. Any other people felt like Felicity, or any thoughts on that? I got a thumbs up. Anybody else would like to share on that idea of the pacing and your own self-pacing? Yes, Dima.
I think it was Elizabeth who had mentioned before, Adrian, making tutorials. We've been doing that in upper school at IS Luxembourg, and that's been a good way to sort of take away that guilt that Felicity, one of my other colleagues here, was just talking about. So having that pre-made tutorial set and ready for the students to engage with and complete a particular task and go at their own pace has then allowed me to have some, let's say, not necessarily downtime, but time to do some other things that I wouldn't otherwise have the chance to do, like Dale was mentioning before. But yes, it's a bit weird. As Felicity mentioned, we're usually full on during the regular day, and then to be at home and oh wow, I can take a break and not feel bad. I think that's important for all of our mental mental health.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's important not to feel bad.
Yeah, thank you. Connie, you had your hand up. Hey, Connie, can you hear us?
Sorry, I'm back now.
Okay, good to see you. So yeah,
Yeah,
you had your hand up about the pacing topic. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm one of Sarah Proudler's colleagues actually. I teach music and drama, and but I teach drama in the MYP, and we've got a timetable at BIS, which means we're only seeing our arts classes once a week. We usually see them 2 or 3 times for 1 hour, and now we're seeing them once a week for 2 hours because we've got a modified timetable now. And I think it's actually working really well because our students have, instead of having 6 1-hour periods a day, they're having 3 2-hour periods. And it seems like this is really working well, and that's actually a pacing issue as well. In drama, we basically continued our curriculum. We don't need instruments and we don't need art supplies. So I think we've got it a bit easier because they're using their own bodies and their own voices. So for the classes that I teach, we just continue with what we were doing, but it was modified. Because we do so much group work, we couldn't do any group work. But they did the other elements of the work that they were doing. And this week we set some performance work. Well, we set some monologues that was connected directly to what we'd been doing. And they're usually working in groups and they're never doing monologues. They're really never doing individual work. And it was highly successful, I have to say. I've just assessed all of them today and given feedback. And it was really a fascinating experience for them to be working like that because they do so much work with each other and so much collaboration and so much sharing of ideas. And they were left with a task, which was a performance task, and then devised the monologue, performed the monologue, videoed it and uploaded the videos. And it was kind of extraordinary and very insightful what they produced to do that task, which is a bit different to what they normally do and something which they purely did on their own. And it was really fascinating to see the quality of work and the kind of skills that they demonstrated. Both Isabel and I were pretty amazed with the work that our students been doing in drama, actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Connie. Nice to hear also getting that drama perspective. And as you said, the equipment you need is less, and love the story about how the kids' input through the videos really kind of surprised you on what they produced and how insightful that was.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. One of the things that, of course, in a school, we're K through 12, and if you're in the grade 6 and above, often it's much easier to communicate and share ideas, and kids can log on. But in the younger years, and I'm going to, hopefully somebody that teaches pre-K through 3, I would love to hear, how are you managing that? Because the reality is you can't really ask a 3 or 4-year-old to log on, and there the parent becomes a more important component of supporting that process. And just curious how people have set that up for the younger years. Is anybody, oh, yes, Connie, thank you.
It's me again. Actually, I teach music in the early years. And I know lots of people are talking about Seesaw. It seems like everybody that I've talked to is using Seesaw. Definitely in the earlier years, they'll have to have the parents help them, because the parents will have to help them log on. I know lots of people know Seesaw, but it's very user-friendly. It's very child-friendly. The big advantage is that we use it all the time already. So the kids are completely familiar with it. And again, I've just been setting a load of tasks for the students to do. And multiple activities per day. They're pretty free to do as many as they want, all of them or none of them or whatever, and to upload or not upload. But I'm just getting, I don't want to say hundreds, dozens of videos every day of the work they're doing, because it's all practical work. It's all creative work, and they love it. They absolutely love it because it's creative. It's not writing. It's not mathematics. They love it, I think, because it's creative, and they're moving a lot, they're singing a lot, they're creating a lot of sound, they're doing a lot of composition and even improvisation activities, and they're tiny, but they're used to doing these kinds of activities. They're finding household instruments, or they're practicing patterns they would play on off instruments. They're playing those on the floor. So they're doing all kinds of performance activities, and really easy with Seesaw. And as I said, it's easy because the kids do it anyway.
Great, thank you, Connie. Patty, I'm wondering if I can ask you to share a bit on your perspective, because I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I understood in preparation you actually got some packets together for parents.
Hi, everybody. This is really great. I like this to a job alike, where you sit around and you share your experiences. So thank you for organizing this. I teach first grade and fourth grade. And for my first grade, I sent them home with a Laparello book. And they've had a lot of experience already through the year creating and drawing inside a Laparello book. And I've had really positive responses from first grade on Seesaw. As Connie was just saying, they're super well versed in using that application, and they're almost much freer than fourth grade is, almost in Schoology. They just go for it and happily share their work and their thoughts, video, photography, or drawings that they've done directly on the screen. So there's really been a variety of responses from them, and even a bit of a back and forth dialogue with the kids, which has really been nice after I've provided feedback for them. With fourth grade, I sent my students home also with a Laparello book in a little folder, a photocopy of an animal with really curious eyes, a collection of recycled papers. And we've yet to actually delve into that, but that was kind of like a safety pack for me, just because I wasn't sure how things were going to start. As you know, John, we kind of had some time to acclimatize to this idea, all of us, the teachers and the students alike. So in that time, I garnered an approach for the students, and they've been responding at their pace and without any sort of pressure from me. And I think it was Sarah who said that she didn't want to impose any sort of screen time on the kids, and I felt the same, that I wanted the art activities to be time away from the screen and for them to be engaged in some hands-on creative problem solving, and also opportunity to practice the skills that we've developed in the studio. So I think this idea of assessing the kids, or having a survey, I guess, what sort of stuff do you have at home in terms of supplies? That would be interesting to have a class meeting about that. And then I think as a class to come together as a way forward for after the Easter break, I'd really like to try something like that.
Thank you very much, Patty, for sharing that. Really nice to hear how you're engaging, with the packets, and how you had some preparation, and so the kids really came equipped with something in their home setting. Just as a side note, are there people that are asking each other questions or sharing information on the sidebar? So don't forget just to pop over there, because I know, Connie, you have a question from Demo. He's asking. So just, there's a private chat. That's fantastic. That's the whole idea of this, is to have multiple conversations, but just be mindful of that's going on the site. One of the things that would be interesting to hear, what is the best piece of advice you have received regarding your area of expertise and virtual learning? It might be from scouring Twitter, or being on LinkedIn, or even from a colleague, or being in a professional learning network. What are some things, nuggets that you were like, wow, this really, never thought of that, and that really has made the difference? It'd be great if we can just go around literally to everybody, and if you have nothing, don't share anything, but it'd be great to hear what are some of these nuggets for folks in the creative arts that you have walked away with since you've been in this virtual learning environment. And Elizabeth, if you don't mind, I'll start with you, because my screen, you're at the top on the list, so I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I think the most useful thing for me was hearing someone who from Asia, and this was at a Learning to meeting, and this was actually part of what made me hope that we'd be able to have threads like this for ourselves in Europe. But it was someone who had been on distance learning for 6 weeks or 8 weeks at that point, and he said, you will get through 1/3 of what you ordinarily would. And that really made me have to focus. It's like, okay, if they're only going to get 1/3, what is the third that I want them to get? And that made me sort of rethink what I was doing between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, great, thank you. Patty?
I think actually just what Adrian had to share earlier about gathering her students' work together and setting up a virtual gallery space for the kids to enjoy. I think that would really be really fruitful. So I like that idea.
Great, thank you. Felicity?
Yeah, not sure. I'm not sure yet.
Okay, great. Mette? Maybe she's not in the room. Okay, I'll come back to you, Mette. Just give a nudge if you're around. Elizabeth King. Oh, Mette? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Mette. Nice to see you and hear you. Just what is a nugget that you think you've walked away from this experience so far? Something
I think, like others have already said, it's really focusing your teaching on what is the essential learning experiences that they should have now, rather than giving too much, really focusing it down and thinking, what can they benefit from most? How can I help them the best? And that's really been refining it over the last few weeks for me.
Great, thank you. Jenna? Now, some people, I just have a name and there's no
Hi.
face or anything. Oh, hey, Jenna. Nice to see you and hear
Hi.
you. What was your kind of nugget that you felt you've walked away so far from this experience? Maybe something that somebody shared to you or something that you discovered in your professional learning network?
Yeah, I would say it's trying to just looking at it in a positive way and just trying to use what you do have instead of what you don't. And with materials, with your ideas, maybe taking that moment to hit on, like someone mentioned before, a standard that you have a hard time hitting on in the classroom. Maybe it's that opportunity to hit that and just really think like an artist. I mean, using what you have and thinking about what your students have and how to make the best of it. So.
Great, thank you.
John,
Elizabeth?
can I give, oh wait.
Yeah,
John, can I
please.
give a shout out to Jenna? Because she's actually my elementary art teacher who's dealing with 300 kids all by her lonesome. And she came up with a project talking about collaboration in art where the students, we have in Italy, we have Andro tutto bene, which means everything will be all right. And she had all the students come up drawing the rainbow at home, sent her all the pictures, and she put them together in a video, which was shared with our whole community.
Wow.
So when we're talking about things about what's important now, this was something that is just like, one, it demonstrated the importance of art to everybody and how we can come up with a collaborative project even though we were separated. So that was a really great project that she did. And it's the same thing where what do you have at home? Find something to draw with, some paper, pencil. And it was this big experience and it was great for the whole school. So I just wanted to give her a shout out because a lot of things people have been saying reminded me of that project.
Thank you, Stephen, and Jenna, thank you so much. How wonderful. That's just great. And that sense of, you know, in these challenging times, how we can bring the community together, the community bigger than our school, but the community in the city or the nation that we live. And that's fantastic. Thank you both for sharing that out. Elizabeth King, because we have two Elizabeths, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Jenna, first of all, what a wonderful collaborative project that really focuses on what's important, which is like keeping our mental well-being and our community together. That's really cool. So thanks for sharing that. I guess the thing that I've learned to focus on is that you're not gonna, like everybody else has been saying, you're not gonna get through your curriculum. You're going to supplement your curriculum with engaging in authentic activities that get the kids away from the computer screen, get them outside with their parents' permission and proper social distancing, and getting them to just be creative, to use that right side of their brain. My colleague, Sarah Prowler, has been amazing to collaborate with. She comes up with these fantastic ideas about using the toilet paper rolls to make a million different things, or found art object, or like she said, Anthony Gormley, if you have a garden, go outside and create something that, you know, disrupts your, visually engages and disrupts your natural community. Like, that's really cool. And if the kids can't go outside, they could do that on their window. And for music people, I just wanted to say that you guys were saying like some of the kids don't have their instruments at home and things like that. Well, my husband and his colleague have been doing virtual choirs and virtual bands where the kids come together with that. One kid just kept coming back. You know, sometimes you just have that one kid that's like, he'll come up with any excuse not to do it. And Mr. Collins was like, go to your kitchen, get some pots and pans, and I want you to hit the rhythm, and I'm mixing that in. And so, you know, just trying to get the kids to be inspired and get off their bottoms and be creative has been, it's been a wonderful challenge, but it's been really fun too. So.
Demo, and then Dale.
Sure. A lot of people have been talking about not even balance, but the fact that less is more, the fact that most students will only get through a third of what we normally would. With that in mind, I think the best advice that I've heard, or one of the most useful, is that trying to keep in mind that whatever activities, tasks that we set for students, that at the most it should be, students should be able to complete that task in the time that they normally would have been in class throughout a particular week, and not more.
Great, thank you. Dale.
Thanks, John. Sorry, I raised my hand only because I have to apologize. I have another Zoom meeting that's starting. I'm hosting a blues social hour.
That's
in the
right.
evening.
Elizabeth warned me, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. So,
well,
but
enjoy the
Simon,
blues.
Thanks, Simon. If you send me the link, I can watch the tail end of the Zoom chat.
Yep, we'll do that.
I would say the best thing that I actually heard was from my, I teach in both the middle school and the high school, but the middle school principal sent out an email that just said, he was quoting another principal, but just said, a lot of times we're focusing on us, but we get angry if a student doesn't turn something in, and we immediately go to that space where they're being lazy or something like that, but we don't know what they're dealing with in their lives. And a lot of them are 13, and this is appropriately with us as well, this is the biggest thing that they faced, but they don't have years of experience that we do. And so what our principal did was he gave each of us teachers the permission to just relax, give the feedback to the teacher, to the students that are doing the work. And if a student goes dark, I think was the term that people are using, for a couple of days, then reach out to them, but don't reach out to them in the ways of, I'm going to catch you for not doing your work. You reach out initially as, hey, are you okay? What's happening? Because at the end of the day, all of this is secondary to what's going on in our lives. And sometimes we get caught up in like, music is the most important thing. But at this moment, nothing is the most important except for family, staying healthy, and us being connected. And it was really cool that our principal gave us the permission to focus on that first and then teach whatever we can teach after that.
Great, thank you. That's a lovely nugget.
Yeah.
Sarah. Bye, Dale. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sorry. Yeah.
Bye, Dale, thank you.
Sarah, your nugget? You just have to maybe unmute?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hi. I have to disagree with agree with what Dale was saying, that it's most important that we connect with the kids. And when I find that they're not doing their work or they haven't submitted it, I'll go, are you okay, first of all? And if not, just to let me know how it's going, kind of thing. And the nuggets I'm getting though are also like, when I have the grade 6, they're all a bit bonkers, but when they're on the Google Meet and when they've done everything I've asked them to do, they're going out, I've met their cats, I've gone and, been taken out into their garden. It's been great. So I've been surprised by how committed the kids are.
Thank you. Anke.
Okay, I'm going to go more towards the schooling now and less about well-being, although I do agree with everything about the well-being. We don't know what situation these kids are in. Some of them aren't happy to be home necessarily. That's another thing someone mentioned to me once that I'm like, ooh, I never thought about that. But in terms of one takeaway, I'm doing a course now that GOA is putting out about assessing online. And the one thing I think sometimes teachers forget is it's hard to keep up with giving feedback online. I think it's harder than when it's face-to-face. And I think a lot of teachers forget that they can turn to peer feedback and they can turn to self-assessment, and to include those in the processes, I think is really important.
Thank you, Anke. Adrian.
Going along with that idea, the group, seeing the kids talk to each other seems like the most important thing, like the relationships. And that was something I saw on Instagram was, let's prioritize relationships right now. But that means the kids' relationship with each other, the kids' relationship with their families, their relationship with me as their teacher, their relationship with the discipline, with being an artist themselves. I like that as a focus. I'm trying now to fit in my collaborative work with my colleagues and my standards and see where will this all align, but that is priority number 1. Is their relationships. And one of the girls,
Adrian, just so you know, your mic is giving off a really strong reverb. I'm wondering if you have something else on, or if you have some headphones. No, maybe turn it down just a bit. Okay. Anyway, it's just very strong. Like we can, it kind of dominates, and we don't hear you clearly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to join on my my phone or my iPad, but the code wasn't working for me, so I had to go back to my laptop, which is
Okay.
not very good.
Okay, but just finish off because it's
Yeah,
important
yeah.
what you're saying.
One of the girls was showing her work. We'd been doing some lettering and typography, and so she'd done a piece and it said, "Family is forever." And she read it, and this really, like, it was so vital to her to have figured that out at home now, that this is her family, that's who she's with. And that, of course, is so important in her life right now at this moment. So
Great, thank you very much. Tracy.
Hey, you know, I guess through this whole thing and just being here tonight, it was really nice. Anka, my colleague, she invited me. She said, "Oh, I'm going to this arts thing. Does anybody else want to see if I can get you in?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, it'd be great." So again, I guess what I'm really reminded of just from listening to everybody tonight, I mean, everybody's got ideas, and I think the approaches we've heard are really interesting. That is, I'm just still amazed that our society is just adapting like this is what we do, and that we're just jumping into this thing that a month ago was not even really on the real radar of our lives, and that we're finding ways to bond with colleagues, and we're finding ways to keep being good teachers and to keep improving our craft and to keep connecting with kids. And I'm here we are in another meeting like this, and I mean, I'm on online forums that are great. I have great colleagues that I work with, and I think coming to each other for support and ideas is at least makes us feel better that we're trying our best. And I think we are trying our best. And I think we're all just trying, and everything we can do to try our best is all that we can do. Hopefully kids walk away with a sense of love of our topic, or love of school, or love of us, or love of each other. And everything else is just bonus. It's really just bonus if they turn in some good work and get motivated and make it through this really strange time. I hope that they find some joy when they come to us, just like in class at school. You know, my senior IB year 2 kids are in band because it's fun. They like it. It's not because they want to, you know, go be professional musicians, you know. So I want them to still come to music class going, I like being there. And I guess that's what I'm seeing from all of the teachers here and the people I meet online. So I guess hopefully we're all fighting the good fight.
Thank you, Tracy. Connie, thank you very much, Tracy.
Hello, sorry, did you use it me? Yeah, I think the thing is, as I said, we're only seeing our kids once a week. And it's the same as when they come in the class, you just want them to be immediately engaged, immediately involved. And I'm just making sure that with this time span that we have for the lesson, that they complete a task in that lesson. Then they feel like they achieved something in today's lesson. I don't want to set any long-term tasks. They've got the task for the lesson and they do it and it's finished and they've achieved something. Yeah.
Great, thank you. One thing that maybe as we're nearing to the end of this session is that if you have a favorite resource or a favorite website or somebody you think we should go and check out on, type it on the side, and then that way everybody walks away with something new to explore, be it a composer, an artist, or a resource or a professional learning network that you're part of. I think it'd just be nice for all of us just to have a little something to walk away with and explore over the weekend that's just around the corner. And as we start wrapping this up, it'd be nice to have that on the sideline. So just share something that you think really is a nugget or something really special you think you want to share and have people go and pop over and check out. Yeah? One question I have is that as this continues, and there, you know, there's, in some situations there's a end date, but it's always tentative. How sustainable is this for you as an educator, as a parent, as an individual, as a human? And what are some things that maybe you feel if it becomes more long-term, you are realizing you're going to have to change or tweak? Because many of us still have a few weeks ahead of us. And Stephen, I know you've been online much longer than many other schools, and Jenna too. So I'm just curious, you know, how sustainable is this? And in your own role and with your own passion and love for the topic that you engage kids with, what are some things you're starting to think about, or even saying, ooh, I'm going to have to do this differently if I keep doing this? Really open to the floor. Anybody just jump in. And if you don't, I'll pick somebody. Elizabeth, I'm going to pick on you because I know you're my co-facilitator, so I hope you don't mind. Elizabeth, you're muted.
Sorry.
Not at all.
I think what I'm discovering is that I'm having the students share work in discussion boards. We're using the Canvas learning management system. And what it means is they're pasting code, they're pasting little snippets of the artworks they're creating with the code. And it's letting some of the quieter voices lean in ways that if you're presenting in class or having people stand up or even doing a gallery walk, some of them are a little hesitant, but they can actually see someone's code, cut and paste it, try it out, see what they can make with it, and then respond. And that's something I may try to take back into bricks and mortar teaching.
Interesting.
Such time as we get back, because having an online space where they share seems to be really productive for some of them.
Excellent. And I know often people say that the online environment, especially for some kids that are, as you highlighted, are shy, it's a safer place because it's not visible. It's kind of, they do it and then they're not there. And so I think that's really interesting. And I love the way you're saying that maybe that would be something to transfer back into the face-to-face. And that's fantastic. It's, you know, through that virtual learning experience, now you have a new methodology to bring into the classroom face-to-face. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts on this kind of sustainability and maybe what does that look like long-term if we continue with this? I don't know, Jenna, maybe if I can turn to you because I know you've been at this much longer than some of other schools, like my own school. Just wondering, you know, now that I think you're in week 5, am I correct in saying that?
Week 6.
Week 6. So talk a bit about sustainability and long term, what the pacing and how maybe you've tweaked things because this is continuing.
I think as the time is progressing, I'm also, you know, you have to also be in tune with what you're feeling, right? So I started my lessons with draw your view out the window or a lot of things that were right around them. And then after weeks, maybe the morale's going down a little and now I'm on a fantasy unit. So it's kind of just writing what you're feeling as well yourself and kind of going with that as the time progresses. I've been really just using basic materials, just paper, markers, whatever I think that they would all have. I love that idea of just giving out a survey to find out what kids actually do have. So now I'm just getting a little more creative with, okay, well, how can we make things out of paper? And things that were never really my comfort, but just trying other things and researching other kinds of projects to do with those ordinary materials at home. So I think it's really a good learning experience for me as a teacher and as an artist. And I'm not really running out of ideas at all. I seem to actually be getting more. There was a lull, I think, like after 2 weeks, I was like, I almost felt like I was writing myself sub-plans, you know, like that they could all follow along and easy to do. But as the weeks are progressing, I'm getting more and more ideas also from these kinds of talks and online resources.
Great. Thank you very much, Jenna. Any other thoughts or people want to jump in on this topic of sustainability and thinking, you know, if this is a little longer than just 2 weeks, what are some things maybe you want to recalibrate or tweak based on your own reflections and your pacing? Adrian, can I turn to you?
I hope the mic is okay. Yeah, I like hearing that other people are a little concerned about seeing kids just once a week. Joining classroom meetings is something to do. And I think, Connie, you said that idea of something they can complete with you in that amount of time so that they feel accomplished and you see everybody's doing it. And that's where I need to go a bit more. I want more engagement like that and accountability so that we can build something a bit bigger together. So.
Okay, thank you. Felicity and Patty, maybe because both of you teach younger kids, you know, what does that look like long-term with younger kids and your own, you know, pacing and sustainability?
Okay, if I go first, Patty, I'm teaching quite a variety of ages in the primary school, but for me, I feel my concern is that the kids who are doing band, which is our school is considered extracurricular, but I'm still planning for them because for me, I consider it as a class and my low school colleagues support me in that. But I'm feeling they don't have the concept, they don't have that energy in the same way as when we meet together twice a week. And that for me is how can I sustain the energy that I've had with them so far? So having some ideas today, just listening to some ideas that you have, makes me think, okay, I can do this. So I appreciate the ideas that you guys have put in. Tracy, with your Zoom for music, I think you were talking about. Somebody else saying just having them practicing their instruments at the same time without listening to each other, but you know they're practicing, you know that you're there, you can, I think all those ideas are great. Some of my kids are finding it hard to practice because everybody's at home, mum and dad are trying to work, and they can't work if they've got the sound of an instrument, or they're in an apartment and other people are there trying to work. So I think that's something we have to take into consideration with our musicians as well. And I have to let go of that and think, okay, well, my band program's not going to be as good next year. And I just have to kind of like, there you go. It's a waffle, but sorry, and it wasn't even about young kids, John.
No, but I think it's very important what you're saying, because I agree, you know, there are those key moments in any experience for an artist. It might be the show, the play, the concert, and those are things that are really motivators, and kids really build up to that. And when you don't have that, you know, can you create one virtually? That, of course, might be possible, but I think you bring up an important point is what is that, you know, what is the motivation? What is the kind of carrot on the stick for them? So thank you very much. Patty? And then Connie, I see your hand up.
Sure. Well, at our school, there's a Google document that's formulated before each week begins, new week begins, and teachers contribute to that, and it's sent to the parents so that they have an overview of what their child's learning week is going to look like. In addition to that, then there's the conference meeting schedule, and I would love to connect with all of my students, but I almost, I'm a little bit apprehensive because I feel that I think they're overwhelmed in that area. So part of me wonders if as a team, we could get together and maybe just formulate some way forward where there is a balance of representation of all the disciplines, and the kids really get that essential 1/3 of learning accomplished. So I guess that's what I'd like, maybe just some more, maybe team communication, if we could have opportunities to engage in that.
Great, thank you, Patty. Connie?
Hi. I had a lot of different ideas because I teach currently primary, early years music and middle school drama. So on the two topics, because I just set a lot of work for my little children, and what I started doing after about 2 weeks, because we're at the end of 3 weeks now, was I started making a lot of videos of myself because they could see me and they hadn't seen me for a while. And I think this lack of contact is mammoth between us and the students and between them. So I started making a lot of videos where I was talking to them, and I was doing a lot of musical things, and I was playing the piano, and they could sing along while I played the piano. And I demonstrated a lot of ways of practicing for them. And I think for them to connect to me, and that was really, really good when I started actually creating videos of myself so they could see me, because I see them all the time. And some of my colleagues that teach younger children are also having Google Meet sessions in small groups. And I thought, yeah, that's what I'm doing the first week back. We've got 2 weeks holiday now, but when we go back, I'm definitely going to meet those children, and we're going to talk about what they've been doing, and we're going to have more of a class together. And I might really run a class with them, with me there, and we can all join in together, because I think that's what we're missing. And if I take that through to middle school, we're just missing working together. And the number one thing that the students are saying is that they miss their friends. They're saying they miss their friends more than anything. That's their greatest concern right now. So my drama colleague Isabel and I said, you know, we want to now extend the next activity, extend it through that they could work together, even with a partner, because even working with a partner is going to be somebody for them to communicate with, because the arts is about communication and sharing ideas, and at the moment they're not doing any communication or sharing ideas or experimenting with anything, and we're about experimentation and creativity, and they're not doing that with anyone. So we want to start to move to get them to work together in those few weeks after we have break. That's really what we'd like to do, to bring them together. They can start to collaborate, and we think that's probably the way to go with that.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you, everybody, for adding those resources on the side. That's fantastic. I do recommend that you copy them or grab them now, because as I understand, and Simon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Stephen, that once we close this room, the chat disappears unless you've saved the chat. But anyway, just great to have all those little resources there. As we come, you know, and to the end of this conversation, I really just want, you know, maybe to go around to everybody and you can just share something, or some, you know, something that you would like others to hear about, or a reflection on what has happened so far this evening as we've gotten together and shared all this wonderful experience and shared our knowledge, and also reflected together on this journey that we're all on of virtual learning, and also ensuring that the creative arts are an important part of that experience that kids get to experience in their home setting. So I'm just going to literally go around and give everybody kind of a final little soapbox to share some ideas or some reflections. And then what we'll do is we'll wrap up. So Elizabeth, I'll start with you, please. You're muted.
Sorry, I was trying to cut and paste. I was distracted trying to copy, cut and paste the chat, and it wasn't working. I was having technical difficulty because I wanted to save. There's so much good stuff here, and there's so much good stuff in this conversation. So I'm hoping we can find ways.
Yeah, I think you can save the chat, Stephen. I think, right? You can save the chat somehow. We'll work it out. Don't worry. We won't close before we have this saved. Yeah.
Super.
So Elizabeth, just some final thoughts.
Just how much it means to hear all of these ideas. I mean, this is the whole sort of learning to underpinnings of teachers sharing with each other is just something that I missed with us not being able to be together in person this year. So it's meant a lot to me to hear the ideas from different schools. You know, we all know what's happening at our own school, but to hear the other ideas is really helpful, especially in this kind of conversational context.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Sarah. Yeah. Sarah P. There's only one Sarah, right? Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I think
Sarah.
it's just great that we can actually have a chat like this, because it makes me feel I'm not doing such a bad job after all. Sometimes you feel as if, my God, am I doing any good at all for these kids? So thank you very much to everybody.
Okay.
I was going to say I have two takeaways. I really connected to the idea. You guys were talking about missed performances and missed art exhibits. And I think it's important to find a way to celebrate somehow so that the kids see some goal going forward, like as a way to celebrate what they've been doing. And then I actually got an idea. I can't remember who this was. I think it might have been Felicity, but I'm not sure. Toilet paper creations. So as a faculty, we're getting together for PD Day, and we want to do something for our graduates, some kind of a something. So somehow making toilet paper creations and showcasing those somehow, I think, for our graduates or something. I got a little bit of art inspiration from whoever said that.
Great, Anke, thank you. Jenna.
No, this has been a great experience for me also, because I'm the only elementary art teacher at my school. So it's nice to hear everyone's ideas and similar experiences. And I got a lot of great ideas from this. So thank you.
Excellent. Mette.
All right, here I am. I found it really interesting to hear about people connecting with their classes, and because I teach early primary, that's been difficult to connect outside of the seesaw space and perhaps with me and the students, and I'd like to explore that more after the break.
Great. Connie.
Oh, I'm here. Sorry. I don't know. Everything. I think this was great. I love this chat. Actually, I really like talking to everybody. I think it's for me being able to do something more practical with my students.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth King.
Hi. Sorry, I'm backlit and my son keeps wandering in and out naked. He's only 2, so that's why my video has been off this whole time.
No worries, no worries. We're just happy you're with us.
Yeah, I love the idea that you're only going to get a third done and maximizing your time in that, because my time from 6:30 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. I am first and foremost a mother now that my son is home with me, and so I really, that takes a load off my shoulders, because like Sarah said, you just feel like you're just not ever doing enough, and so that feels good. Thank you for the community.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. Many of us have families and other dynamics, and as we juggle the huge responsibility of delivering learning, we also have to manage our own situations, as in your case, a little boy that's at home. So thank you for highlighting that again. Tracy.
You know, I don't know. Again, I always like these kind of forums to be able to exchange ideas. Again, I think it was Sarah who said, you know, okay, I'm doing all right. People have great ideas. We're all got great ideas. We're all doing our best. I can just see, you get a little bit of validation doing that. Anka brought up something about, you know, sharing final products that were kind of missing. And I think whether you're in art or music or theater, and honoring kids. And I just want to just one little quick share out that I'm doing, because on our last concert, we always honor our seniors. So what I had the seniors do for me, those of us that teach high school, is I had them send me a picture of them either in their cap and gown or playing an instrument from when they were little, or a picture from a concert. And I had them write, okay, where they're going to go to school, what their plans are for next year, and then just anything they wanted to write about their time in music exists the whole time they were there. And I'm putting together a slideshow and to feature those thoughts. And usually they say them in front of an audience, but they can't. So that's just something, I guess, finding ways to honor our kids. It makes me sad to think about, though. I'm really sad for the seniors, I must say.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Absolutely.
It is.
I'm with you.
It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Demo. Thank you, Tracy.
I would say, just piggyback on what Patty was saying, from an organizational standpoint, and if we're discussing how sustainable this is, I think it's really important that teachers do what they need to do to make sure they get out the big picture for the week, so students know what's going on, and the goalposts don't change. I think that probably just from a pedagogical standpoint, that's really important. And also the making of tutorials. I know some colleagues have been perhaps a bit hesitant, resistant even in doing these right now. They take obviously more time than what we otherwise would be doing. On the other hand, once they're made, they're there for the future. So heaven forbid something like this happens again, but even under normal circumstances, if students are absent away for whatever reason from school, they can go and use these tutorials. So they're reusable, and I think that's a good idea, or a good takeaway to remember.
Yeah, absolutely, Demo. And that also kind of adds to the idea of sustainability. So that resource is sustainable over the period. And as Elizabeth had said, she's bringing some things back into the classroom. That might be something, again, that you're going to bring back to the face-to-face and say, hey, here's some tutorials while you don't understand this concept. Look at this, and then let's have a little conference together. Great idea. Thank you. Yeah. Adrian.
I wanted to say, like Jenna, it's really good to feel like you have a team, because I am the only person on my team in the primary as well. So this feels really good. And then kind of going along with what Dima and Elizabeth were saying is now you have this set, you have this collection of work from this time. Also then it's a shared experience for the kids, this specific time. So referring back to this time, I think is going to be valuable as well, because they're all in it together in this strange way. So they'll have that moving into next year, moving the year after. It's interesting.
Thank you, Adrian. Connie, I'm going to come to you. I just want to make sure Patty and Felicity share out their final thoughts, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah? Patty.
Sure. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. And what I really get a strong sense of is just how much you're sharing of yourselves with your students. I mean, I know we do that always in the classroom, but I really get a strong sense of you continuing that on screen. So my big takeaway is I feel really inspired by all the stories everyone's shared and the ideas. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Patty. Felicity.
Yeah, I think my internet is starting to die. I guess all my kids are now deciding it's time to play and they're bored of me being on this. So if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. I think for me now, I realize that for so much time, for so long, I've wanted to have time at home with my family, and I'm actually getting it. I want to now just embrace every moment of that and think actually, instead of this being something awful, this being something that I'm actually very privileged to have this time. My eldest son, who's 20, is home. When am I ever going to have this long family time again? So I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. And that's really a good point you're bringing up, is, that we as families are all in these small spaces, and how we can really celebrate that time. And especially if you have older children that tend not to be at home, that extra time is really important. So thank you for highlighting that. Connie.
Well, actually, we were just wondering how we save the chat, because
okay, so Anke has actually given some instructions. Anke, thank you. Can I turn it over to you?
Sure. So in the bottom right-hand corner of the chat, there's like a file icon. And then you can upload it to Dropbox or to your Google Drive or whichever, or your computer. Maybe your computer is the best choice, only because when I tried to do it to Google Drive, I literally had to give them permission to have full access to my drive, including delete everything. So I didn't go that route.
I didn't see the file icon. That's the problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think that's actually for adding a file to the chat. We're going to save the chat's going to be saved on our settings. We'll have so then I can send it out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Simon.
I apologize.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
that's my mistake. Sorry.
No worries. No.
I did the same thing, thinking that's what it was for, and then I realized it's for the transferring of a file if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay,
I really want to turn to Stephen and Simon, who are colleagues and teammates from Learning Too, and just give them an opportunity also maybe to share some reflections. They've been patiently, listening and observing. Just some thoughts, maybe parting thoughts, Stephen, and then Simon.
No, I just love sitting and listening to you guys. I mean, my wife is a kindergarten teacher, so I get to see her teaching her kids on a daily basis as well. And one of the things I've actually talked about, because I'm on the leadership team, is I've stopped calling it distance learning and online learning, because it's not. That's a whole different pedagogy. What we're doing is called emergency learning. We're doing what we need to do. So when teachers are feeling like they are not living up to who they would normally be on a daily basis, you have to remind them that this is not, it's the whole idea of judging a fish to climb a tree. This is not who they are. This is not who they were trained to be. Remind them that this is an emergency. This is different. And something we'll be thinking about in the future is how do we prepare our teachers for being able to pick this up in the future, so it's not this kind of steep wall and learning curve. So if they have to switch the next day, how they can feel confident in how they switch in the next day. And that's going to be something for, I think, leadership teams to think about in the future.
Thank you, Stephen. Simon.
This has been great conversation. We have more coming up too. I've loved hearing what you've been saying, and normally I'm always talking, so I've actually been quiet for an hour,
Simon.
hour and 20 minutes or so, which is quite hard for me.
That's because I have the mute button.
That's why I'm the host, so I could always unmute myself. But no, it's been great. I hope everyone got a benefit out of it. For us, this is our week 2.5. We're nearly at the end of week 3. I'm in the upper school, so the first week we ran our whole schedule like a normal school day, and then the second week we're still running like a school schedule, but different timing, reduced time. So there's some sort of normality with that, but we don't know if we keep going how long we're going to be able to sustain this, or do we have to need the tweak again. But again, lovely to see familiar faces, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Simon. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us and sharing. And I think, as Patty said, just shared your hearts out and your passion. And what you all do so well is ensure that the creative arts are part of the essential learnings and really engage kids. And as in these emergency learning situations, Stephen, you have to copyright that or trademark that thing, because somebody's going to take that. That's great. But really, hats off to all of you. It was just a real honor and privilege to be in this room with you and engage in this conversation. And as Simon said, we have more of these. We have one next week on mathematics, and then we have one on digital learning coaches. And of course, you can sign up for all of them. Because it's math doesn't mean you have to be a math teacher. And then we're going to do one on September. No, we're not going to be on this in September. Don't worry. April 21st, where we have 4 school leaders. One is actually Stephen's head of school. They're going to get together and talk about what does leadership look like in a time of crisis, and what are some learnings that they've engaged with. And we really hope you can join us, and you can follow us also at Learning2, #Learning2, and we'll be a lot of things going on. So do keep in touch with the Learning2 hashtag and the @ on Twitter and the website. And if you're interested in more of these things, please communicate to the Learning2 team, and we really look forward to supporting more of these conversations. Elizabeth, thank you so much, because I know you did a lot of background work. Elizabeth did a lot of work in the background to get this together, questions, and set up a Google Doc. So really, big virtual hug. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for all that you've done to make this happen. And thank to each one of you. Be well, be safe. It is the weekend. Hopefully you can disconnect and use your toilet paper for something, as I plan to.